Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be back in Europe to continue intensive coordination with allies and partners on some of the most urgent issues facing our countries. And that begins with today's NATO meetings. And I want to especially thank Secretary General Stoltenberg for his leadership, the Deputy Secretary General of NATO, and especially Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock of Germany, not only for hosting us, but for taking initiative to bring the foreign ministry together in an informal but very productive series of discussions. The 30 NATO allies remain fully engaged, aligned, committed to supporting a democratic, independent, and sovereign Ukraine. The world has seen the strength and resilience of the Ukrainian people these past 3 months. It's seen the unity at the heart of NATO. President Putin launched this brutal and unprovoked war thinking he could eliminate Ukraine as an independent country and divide NATO. Instead, he's only reinforced Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. As Ukraine has chased the Russian army away from Kyiv, NATO is stronger, more capable, more unified than ever. Every member of the alliance wants to bring this war to an end as soon as possible. But we're equally determined to maintain our security assistance to Ukraine, to continue our sanctions, export controls, and diplomatic pressure on Russia for as long as it's necessary. The United States and our allies and partners are focused on giving Ukraine as strong a hand as possible on the battlefield and at any negotiating table so that it can repel Russian aggression and fully defend its independence and sovereignty. We've marshaled a robust transatlantic response to the humanitarian crisis caused by the war. More than 6 million Ukrainians have fled their homeland. They've been welcomed in countries across Europe and across the Atlantic. The United States has provided millions of dollars in assistance to countries taking in Ukrainian citizens to help provide essential support and services. Our countries are also coming together to address some of the broader consequences that are flowing from Russia's aggression, like the global food shortages and rising food prices that we're seeing. Ukraine supplies a great deal of the world's corn, its wheat, its oilseeds for cooking oil. Russia's blocking Ukraine's ports. It's destroying its farmland, warehouses, roads, equipment. That's not only striking a major blow to Ukraine's economy, but it's also designed to inflict pain on the rest of the world to weaken support for the Ukrainian people. Later this week in New York, we will be convening an emergency session of the UN Security Council and also foreign ministers to focus on the steps that we can take together to address the immediate challenges for food and to address food insecurity, as well as to look at some of the medium-term and longer-term answers to food insecurity. We don't know how the rest of this war will unfold, but we know that a sovereign and independent Ukraine will endure. And we know that in supporting Ukraine, we're also defending the principles of sovereignty and independence that are foundational to global peace and security. Our partnership with the people of Ukraine is enduring as well. American diplomats have returned to Ukraine after several weeks working out of Poland. We're reopening our embassy in Kyiv. We're taking all necessary precautions, but that work is underway, and we will resume operations very soon. President Biden recently nominated Bridget Brink to serve as our next ambassador to Ukraine. She's an outstanding veteran diplomat. We hope the Senate will move quickly to confirm her, just as we hope Congress will move quickly to pass the $40 billion supplemental funding bill to ensure that our ability to provide assistance to Ukraine is not interrupted. This morning I had an opportunity to meet with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba, part of what is an ongoing conversation with him on the phone, in person, whenever we have an opportunity to actually see each other. And I conveyed to him, again, our commitment, unwavering commitment to Ukraine. NATO's unified response, which we affirmed once more today, will continue. Allies were joined here in Berlin by the foreign ministers from Sweden and Finland. Both countries are close and valued defense partners of NATO and the United States. And the United States would strongly support a NATO application by either Sweden or Finland, should they choose to formally apply to the alliance. We'll respect whatever decision they make. And we've long supported NATO's open door policy and the right of all countries to decide their own futures, their policies, their security arrangements. We also spent time here in Berlin laying the groundwork for next month's summit in Madrid. NATO is going to release its new strategic concept, laying out how the alliance will sustain and strengthen transatlantic security in the face of President Putin's aggression, as well as other emerging threats. And we'll look ahead to our continuing efforts to fortify our force posture on NATO's eastern flank and to strengthen our defense partnerships beyond the region, for example, with Australia, Japan, South Korea, and New Zealand, all of which will be represented in Madrid. Finally, from here, we'll be traveling to Paris to attend the second ministerial meeting of the U.S.-EU Trade and Technology Council. President Biden's initiative to align some of the world's largest economies on the most important trade and tech issues of the day is bearing very significant fruit and delivering real results. Together, we're working to shape norms and set standards on emerging technology, build more diverse and resilient supply chains, coordinate our approaches to export controls and investment screening mechanisms, acting together to stop unfair trade practices that harm our workers and our companies. The TTC has already proven highly useful for facilitating U.S.-EU cooperation, for example, on the swift imposition of export controls on Russia after it invaded Ukraine. I'm very much looking forward to our meetings in Paris and to continuing to deepen what is an abiding partnership between the United States and the European Union. And with that, happy to take some questions.